God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be pleasing to you. Amen. So, as many of you know, I have two kids, two young girls, a 5.5-year-old and a 16-month-old, and they were both born at home. They were born at home on purpose. I feel like I always have to put that in, the on purpose part in there, because it's not real common anymore. Yeah, so it's been fun to think about their birth as we're going through this season of Advent, getting closer to the time where we're going to celebrate the birth of Jesus. And I've been thinking, too, about the solstice. The solstice comes so close here to Christmas. And just thinking about this time of, silence, this waiting time. And, this idea of, this long, long night. I was joking with Kirsten that I stayed up late working on this, and I didn't get as much sleep as I would have liked, and I told her it's because I wanted to enjoy as much of that long night as possible. And I did a good job of it. Kept looking up in my little window in my basement and just please don't be dawn. Please don't be the dawn light yet. I made it. I did okay. But yeah, this time is really, really can be unique and special, and sometimes it can be hard. People get affected by the cold and the amount of sunlight that's available. That seasonal affective disorder is a real thing for a lot of people. But it's also a time where we can, it seems crazy to say, this many days before Christmas, but slow down and take some time to be contemplative, to follow the season, this time of rest. So I was thinking about silence, and it's one of those things where I didn't realize how abundant the silence was before that first kid was born. No clue. No clue. We tried to fill it up. We tried to fill it up with Netflix movies and listening to the radio, but there were no musical toys or books. I'm a good dad. I replaced the batteries in those things, even though there were no sound machines in our bedroom to help make sure if somebody went down for a nap, it did not get interrupted by an accidentally loudly closed cupboard door in the kitchen. There were no episodes of Bubble Guppies on TV. I've learned to appreciate Bubble Guppies now, so even if you don't have kids, they've got some really good songs in there. They're very catchy. No one was asking me, or I was not asking anyone questions like, how is toothbrushing going? It's been a while. Why don't I help with the molars in the back? Or, can you stop what you're doing? Can you set the scissors down and just check in with your body? Because it really looks like you need to go to the bathroom. Very wiggly. Or, I never had to ask the question, do you think Santa will know you're going to be at your cousin's house on Christmas morning? I'm hoping I didn't create any extra anxiety by bringing that question up. She seemed totally fine. Speaking of silence, I'm a Spotify member. Every year at the end of November, we get the Spotify Wrapped, and they kind of go through what your listening was like during the last year. And it turns out that we listened to Ellie Goulding's Lights over 1,000 times, because Esme would sit in the hammock and just rock back and forth with that song on repeat. And then she'd sit in the car with that song on repeat. And sometimes she'd just sit outside with that song on repeat. We are in the 0.0001% of the top listeners, according to Spotify, of Ellie Goulding's Lights. So I hope she got a little extra kickback from the company from our family this year. If there's going to be a song on repeat, it could be far worse, so I'm not really complaining at all. But yeah, just these things that I didn't know weren't there yet. I was thinking about this this silence before Esme was born, when we were childless. And I love thinking about how much fear and excitement there was in that silence. I love that Advent touches on that experience of waiting for something completely unknown. That connects so nicely with this winter solstice, the longest night of the year. This marking the season, this marking the time, just reminds me of our breathing shifting between inhale and exhale. We do it over and over again, unconsciously, all day long, awake or asleep. But at some point, while we're breathing, we shift from inhale to exhale, from exhale to inhale. It's brief, and it's kind of an interesting little moment. Like, what triggers it? How do we know when to shift? And so I've done a meditation practice where we've done this a little bit, and I'd like to do that now, just for a few breaths. Just invite you all to just kind of get feeling like you're in a stable spot, and just, if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. It's a sermon. They might already be closed. I get it. And just pay attention to your breath in that moment when it shifts. Thanks for joining me in that. It's this beautiful thing, this feeling of like, we talk about the seasons being like a breath, like our whole planet is doing this breathing in and out. Here in the church, by celebrating Christmas and Easter every year, we go through these same things, the same cycle of remembering, of celebrating, of mourning. And yeah, so it's just, I love having the opportunity to touch in with that. Yesterday in meditation, they did something called shadow work, where people take the time to intentionally look at some of their parts of themselves that they keep maybe more unconscious. Some emotions or fears or desires that for one reason or another, they try to keep hidden. They keep hidden from the outside world. A lot of times they try to keep them hidden from themselves. And so, yeah, they just use the solstice as a chance to intentionally touch in, to connect, as we go into this next season with that connection to a more whole self, to acknowledge those parts of ourselves that might seem a little uncomfortable. Like lately, I've been struggling a lot with hurt feelings. And I hear in my head from the 4 agreements, we've talked about it here many times in this building, 4 agreements, one of them is, don't take things personally. And you know what hurt feelings feels like? It sure feels like I'm taking stuff personal. But I also don't want to use that agreement as like a cudgel, and just like, no thinking, no having hurt feelings. I'm trying to honor the fact that I'm feeling hurt and lonely. And the feelings, I think, are from changes happening at my other job. It might be from the sleep and exercise that I'm not getting. I got a good joke out of it, though, so that, the no sleep paid off. You know, things at home that are hard sometimes. Esme's been in kindergarten, and she's learning some new vocabulary. Like, you're not smart, and you're dumb. She used to just say when she was upset, you're not my dad anymore, which was kind of cute in a way, because I'd never heard anyone say that to me before. And yeah, but then to hear these kind of like schoolyard mean things that she's hearing it at school, I know, and it's hard to hear it kind of shot back at me. Some of the way I'm feeling might be because I was sick and I was on antibiotics for a while, and I don't know how that all impacts everything in my body that's happening. But I'm trying to take a closer look. Instead of just insisting that those feelings don't belong and trying to make them go away, I'm trying to just feel them, see if I can figure out what might be causing them. Don't need to solve it, but just try to acknowledge it. Try to apologize when I need to. And I think that by embracing these feelings, I can respond to them in a healthier way. And so using the solstice as this time of reflection on the ways we want to live a fuller life going into the new season and the new year seems like a really, really good use of my time. And it feels like a great way to connect with this baby about to be born on Christmas Day. Mary was so filled with love and hope. She had no idea what her son would do in his life and what it would mean for him to live life as the Messiah. When Gabriel announced to her what her role was going to be, she accepted it. And she was eager. She believed that the Messiah would come, the Messiah would change things. In the Magnificat, she talks about, the poor receiving, the rich sent home with nothing. So she understands it's big. It's a big scope, but still, who could know? Because a few chapters later in the book of Luke, we hear Jesus sharing this idea with his followers. He says, "If you love those who love you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners who love those who love themselves. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. And if you lend to those from whom you expect to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to get back the same amount. But love your enemies, and do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great." To be ready for the baby that's going to say those words, we have to be ready to love. In one of the commentaries that I listened to in preparation for this, I heard this question that we talked about with the kids. If you were going to sing your praise to God, what would your song sound like? What are the things that you would offer up in prayer as thanks, as things that you're excited to be a part of in the future? What would you look back on through this year as something worth reflecting on, something that you want to bring with you into this new year, this new season? And it's hard to do. It's a busy, busy time. It's easy to say, reflect on these things, but it's another thing to actually do it. And there's something special and important about being here together in song, in prayer, in meditation. A few weeks ago, Pastor Elizabeth was talking about how special and important it is for us to sing together and to harmonize and to share our voices in song together. And having Neal and Betty and having all of the music that we've got from Jan and from all of our voices coming together, it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and I'm glad that we take the time to do it. And in the same way, that time for prayer and silence is important too. It's hard to carve out that time. So like we did before, I'm going to invite you to just sit for a moment. We'll sit together in prayer and meditation. And we'll take this time to listen. Maybe we'll take the time to feel the air changing direction in our lungs. We'll use this time to say thanks, to sing our Magnificat in our heart of what we're thankful for, what we're thankful to be part of, what we hope to love and bring into this new year, even if it's the hard part of ourselves, especially when it's the hard part of ourselves. Loving your enemy sometimes means doing that shadow work, finding those parts of yourself that are not easy to love. That's what this baby is going to call us to do. So we'll sit together in prayer, in silence together for just a few moments. We need to take this time in silence to connect with our whole self. We may miss the moments in our life that can become part of our Magnificat. To love others well, we need to love ourselves well too. We need the slow, silent time of waiting with patience and intention so that we can be ready to love. Amen.